Hello, everybody, and welcome to another little edition of Questions with a very good friend of mine that I've known for a long, long time. He is an industry leader. His name is Glenn McMahon. He has been the head of Armani, Donna Karen. Who else, Glenn? Who else? Who else?
Dolce Gabbana, St. John Knit.
Just small ones. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, thanks. How about you?
Not too bad. A little warm all of a sudden.
Oh,
A
yeah.
little warm over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That time of the year, spring is finally coming.
Finally,
Yeah.
finally. I am happy to see it, but not as happy as I am to see you. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
I have some questions for you because you are kind of the standard of the industry as a leader and somebody that knows how things work and how things are going and the way things are operating from your standpoint, what you know, what you've seen. So, is there really like a true move towards sustainability inside fashion? I mean, do you like a real one, not we're giving.
That's a great question. If you had asked me that 12 months ago, the answer might have been different than it is today. So I do think that, this pandemic has accelerated everything in the retail business, including sustainability, the march towards sustainability. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. Are we making progress? Yes. And interestingly enough, it's being pushed from a lot of different directions. The luxury brands have gotten on board with it. Stella McCartney has been out there on the forefront for over 10 years. And she's finally, being heard. Big companies like Kering and LVMH are making significant strides, as well as brands like Nike and Patagonia, big important consumer businesses. And that's having a trickle across effect. So you're seeing it across other luxury brands like Moncler is on the board, Prada's on the board. It's really important, even though those are high-end, expensive brands, if they're out there talking about sustainability and actually doing, making sustainable products, that speaks volumes for the rest of the industries. But you're also seeing it come from the lower end. Big companies like H&M and Zara and Target and Walmart are all now making commitments. So like I said earlier, and it's no longer just lip service, but man, we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of work, but I mean, just the fact that it's not just lip service, like that's what always scares me.
Well, and I think proof is that there's a big thing going on now in called regeneration. And I think dovetails in with the resale that we're seeing in luxury. So
Mhm.
it's product that's been bought, used, worn, whatever. And
Mhm.
people are saying it's still in good shape, but I just don't want it anymore. It served my purpose. I want to move on. So instead of throwing that out and putting it in a landfill, you're seeing this new initiative where it's either going to resale to a secondary market, or a lot of the brands are doing buyback programs where
Mhm.
they'll take it, they'll refurbish this product, and they'll sell it as like previously owned,
Yeah,
certified previously owned. Taking a page out of the automotive industry,
sure.
Mercedes and BMW have been hugely successful with this, as have other car companies around the world. Well, the clothing and apparel and footwear companies are finally realizing this. And this to me is the big first shift that we're going to see in sustainability. So it's sort of the cycle of the product. Instead of it being bought, used, worn, and thrown in the garbage, we're now going to buy, wear, use it. We're going to refurbish it. We're going to resell
I mean, I even had Patrick Duffy on a little while ago from the Swap Chain and the Global Fashion Exchange, where they do exactly that. It is a platform set up just to swap the clothing back and forth and be able to
it.
do it
Well,
not just in person, but online.
yeah. Well, it's interesting because so much of what's happening is being consumer driven and so much of it is technology driven, and it's happening by people like that. So it's really starting online, and then these movements are becoming big enough that the big brands recognize there's something going on here. We need to get into it. So, give credit where credit's due. It's generally happening on the consumer level. It's from these really smart people that are doing those trade and swap markets online, that the bigger brands they're watching and they're saying, okay, we're going to copy this because the consumer likes it. It has good, overarching, principles because it's good
Mhm.
for the environment and it's a business. So it's attracting a younger, more savvy consumer to their brands that they might not otherwise be getting.
I don't think
Yeah.
that that was possible 15 years ago,
No,
because there was no way to have the metrics and the analytics to know what the consumers really wanted in that way. The consumers were being told.
right,
Right?
exactly, dictated to.
Yeah, but now it really is, you're trying to do the things that that they're wanting, and you can see that they're wanting it because there's analytics to support it.
Right.
I mean, that's amazing.
Well, technology has changed everything in our lives, and certainly this. But this is important to the millennials, and more importantly, Gen Z consumer. They are making purchasing decisions based on sustainability, and so you can bet that Zara and H&M and some of the big fast fashion companies are paying attention to it, because this is their customer base, and they can't afford to lose their customer base if they're not doing the right thing. So again, it's the consumer is really driving the bus. They realize, I don't want to buy something just to wear it once and throw it away. And that was the whole premise built behind fast fashion, right? Absolutely. Like, it's so cheap, you can buy it, never wear it again, and you didn't spend a lot of money. Yeah. And by the way, we're filling landfills full of that stuff.
How did we do that? How are we doing that?
Philosophy was more is better. And now that shift has changed to less is better. And consumers are realizing, I'd rather own less and better quality and be able to use something again, or reuse something that was used by somebody else. And that's smart thinking. So yeah, you're right. It's taken a long time. I mean, you hear these ideas now and you're like, well, why weren't we doing this before? I mean, they make perfect sense. They're not, and none of them are rocket science, right? I mean,
no.
A lot of it goes back to probably what our grandparents and great parents did. Instead of throwing something away, they fixed the coat, they put the button back on, they darned the sock.
Have you ever heard waste not, want not?
Yeah, and a lot of the waste was, comes from the production cycle, because these big companies had so many stores to fill. They were just producing product to fill stores and then not selling it. So it became a price war, and they were marking it down. Literally, you could go into any of these big box retailers and buy something for $1.99 or $3.99. Like, how does that make sense? The sustainability is really going to require not only brands and consumers working together, but the whole design process has to change to have the sustainability thought of up front when they're designing the product, not just at the end when they're trying to get rid of the product.
Absolutely. But all right, here's another thing. So you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but changing that key performance indexes for these major fashion brands, and especially like for you deal probably more with only the luxury higher end fashion brands more than you do the.
Yeah. Well, I mean, historically I did, but now today I deal with, up and down the price spectrum. So.
Okay. Everywhere. But I mean, is it really changing those key performance indexes for them? Is that going to be driving more of that sustainability for them? Are they really looking at it for that reason?
That's a good question. I think it's factored now into the decision-making process where it never had been before. Okay. I don't know that I would say honestly that it's driving it. Mm-hmm. I think we're still far away from,
driving anything with it.
Because again, it's going to start from the whole brand thesis. Like, what does my brand stand for, and why am I making this? Yeah. Is there a purpose for this? Is somebody going to be able to use this for a couple of years instead of just one season? Are they going to be able then to repurpose it or resell it? And that's when I would say it's driving the business. That's not happening right now. We still have a lot of brands or designers that are putting out collections every season for what? Exactly. I like these brands that are single category brands that have specialized in, a category that they're going to own that, and they're going to be the best at that, whether it's at a low price and medium price or high price. Mm-hmm. And I think we're making good progress, but there's so much more to be done at it. But it's really going to start when the brand realizes, I don't need to be shipping new product in the store every single month. I don't need to be designing 4 collections a year for winter, spring, resort. Like, what's resort? And summer, and I need to give the consumer the product when and where they need it. And, once we address those issues, then sustainability is inherently going to be benefit from that. Because we're, right now, the way that the fashion cycle works, I know you know this, but like we ship fall merchandise into the stores during the summer months.
Mhm.
You know, so you go into a department store or something and it's, you know, July, August, you're looking for a bathing suit. They've already started putting fall merchandise on the floor. It's not, you know, you're looking for something for that weekend, the
Yeah.
consumer, right? And then, and some of the more contemporary digital brands are doing it. They're calling them drops. They're
Mhm.
not making these big, massive collections. It's not season specific. They have a new item. They're telling their customer it will be ready for them. They can either pre-order or they can buy a limited edition number. And these things are selling out immediately. And that's
Yeah.
really the future of the production cycle. That and
I
on demand.
love that.
Yeah. On demand production is really going to continue to grow more and more. And it's funny because the fast fashion businesses started out that way. So what they did was they would buy, you know, take a huge position on a fabric, and
Yeah.
then, you know, depending on what the trend was, they would cut it into that fabric. So they weren't trying to predict, they were basing it on KPIs, on metrics, on data. So we're going to go back to that, where you're going to, you know, there's a great company out of Europe called Son of a Tailor. They
Mhm.
make made to order, it's on demand manufacturing, t-shirts, sweaters for men. I think they just started for women too. It's a brilliant idea and the product is great.
They're
Um,
fantastic. Yeah.
so that's the future of it. And once brands start really shifting their production cycle and their design cycle there, then we're really talking about sustainability.
I agree. The other thing that you mentioned this, and since you did, I have to bring it up, is, you know, when you talk about the fast fashion brands taking a huge position on a particular fabric that's out there, we have to go back and you have to think, okay, this is how it happens. That's where it starts, because you have the designers thinking about what they're going to do, but they can only do things with the fabrics that are available.
Right.
So, and it is the people that are manufacturing and putting those fabrics out, they're like, okay, this is what we have for this season.
Right.
This is what we're producing. You have to choose from this.
Right. The whole supply chain starts with the mills. So you're right.
Mhm.
And the mills have to realize that the consumers now want sustainable fabrics or fabrics that are made from recycled materials. So they have to start investing in making more of those types of things. Well, and the good news is that the pandemic has been a big wake up call for a lot of these businesses because their businesses have plummeted. You know, as consumers bought less over the last 12 months.
Sure.
There was a lot less inventory created. So the real test is going to be whether brands, after the recovery starts, do they return to bad, you know, habits, or are they adopting these new, you know, smarter, sustainable business practices? So,
Yeah. Let's hope it's the latter of those two.
yeah.
And with that, I've got one more question, then I'll let you go. Sorry, it's already taken a little bit more of your time than I.
This is great.
Um, retail stores,
Mhm.
like with so many of them that have shuttered, so many
Yeah.
things have closed, and I mean, you know, we've lost department stores. We've lost. Is this the trend that's going to go forward from now on?
Well,
Are
I
they
think
going
it's
to
a
be open?
corrective measure.
Yeah.
We had too many stores. It's going to change. It's already started to change. Again, it's being driven largely by direct-to-consumer brands that realize, yes, our customer likes to buy online,
Mhm.
but retail store has to change to being an experience. And there are retail stores out there. You know, I like to think of food, you know, grocery is probably the best example because they're small independent grocery stores that you just go in. They're all over the world and you fall in love with food, even if you're not a foodie. I mean, they're, I think, smaller independent retailers that can make it through this crisis are going to come out the other side, you know, actually pretty healthy. But it's going to be about experience and service. It can't just be, you know, open the door and they will come. You've got to give them a reason. It's all
Funny,
part of the new equation.
it's finding the lemonade.
Yeah.
From all of the lemons that we got, there was a lot of lemonade being made. And we're
Yeah.
now trying to, you know, we've kind of got a taste for that lemonade and we want to
Yeah.
keep some of that stuff.
Well, yeah, that's
You know?
going to be the interesting thing to see the behaviors that stick after the crisis is over.
Like you said, it's going through a correction right now.
Let's do this again.
Let's do. I mean, I have a million more questions I could ask you if you had time to answer them. So if you're into it, I would love to do this again if you've got the time.
Yeah, let's do it again. This
All
was
right.
fun. Great to see you, Donny.
And
Thanks.
Glenn, thank you so much.